My family left my 9-year-old daughter in another country and flew home without her. They didn't whisper it. They didn't hesitate. They didn't look ashamed when they said it. They said it the way people talk about a suitcase that missed a connection. I didn't scream. I didn't fall to the airport floor. I didn't beg anyone to explain. I smiled. And that smile is what scared them later, once it was already too late. I was standing in the arrivals terminal just after 11 a.m., holding a paper cup of coffee that had gone cold and a small bundle of white daisies I'd bought from a kiosk near baggage claim. I buy flowers when I don't know what else to do. It's a habit I picked up somewhere between grief and denial. The belief that something soft might make a hard moment less real if you hold it long enough. My daughter loved daisies. She pressed flowers between book pages like she was collecting evidence. She said she liked how they stayed beautiful even after they were flattened, how they didn't disappear, just changed shape. She was 9. She didn't have a phone. She still forgot to zip her backpack all the way and acted surprised when pencils spilled out like confetti across the floor. That was why I was scanning faces like a security camera stuck on high alert, waiting for a small body to come barreling toward me, waiting for the hug that knocks the breath out of your lungs and reminds you why you keep choosing to stay alive in a world that keeps testing you. 3 days. That was the agreement. 3 days abroad. A special trip, my mother had called it. She said it like it proved she had leveled up as a grandmother. She said it like generosity erased responsibility. The trip included my parents, my younger sister Claire, her husband Jason, their 2 children, and my daughter, Nora. Not me. You need rest, they told me. You work too much. Let us spoil her. I believed them. Not because they had earned my trust, but because my daughter was excited, and I wanted to be the kind of mother who didn't let her own fear shrink her child's world. So I signed the travel consent letter. Specific dates. A return flight on Tuesday. I took a photo of it on my phone because being a single mother teaches you to document everything the way other people document vacations. The automatic doors slid open. The crowd poured into the terminal. Laughter echoed. Tears fell. People collided into reunions that looked messy and real. A woman squealed and jumped into someone's arms. A man juggled a toddler and a carry-on like it was normal. Someone dropped a stuffed rabbit, and 3 strangers reacted like it was a falling baby. Then I saw them. My mother first, my father beside her, Claire behind them with sunglasses perched on her head like a crown, Jason pulling a rolling suitcase, their children bouncing on their heels, talking over each other. They looked refreshed, relaxed, like they'd just taken a break from being themselves. I smiled back automatically, because my face hadn't caught up with my brain yet. Then my brain counted. 1, 2, 3, 4 adults, 2 children, and an absence shaped exactly like my daughter. So loud it made the terminal feel quiet. I stepped forward. "Hey," I said, and froze halfway through the word. "Where's my—" I stopped. "Where's Nora?" My mother didn't flinch. That's the part that still wakes me up at night. Not the words. The ease. The comfort. The way she looked like this was a minor inconvenience instead of the moment my life split in half. "Don't freak out," she said brightly. "I'm not freaking out," I replied. My voice sounded calm in a way that felt wrong. "I'm asking where my child is." Claire made a small sound that might have been a laugh. One of her kids rubbed their eyes and said, without understanding the weight of the moment, "We left her." For a second, I nodded. I actually nodded. My brain tried to reshape the sentence into something reasonable. I waited for the clarification. The joke. The moment someone laughed and said, "We're kidding." No one did. I looked at my father. "She's not here," I said. He sighed like I'd asked him to help me carry groceries. "We'll talk about it at home." "No," I said. "We'll talk about it now." Claire leaned closer, her voice sharp and low. "Don't do this here." "Do what?" I asked. "Collect my child?" My mother lowered her voice the way people do when they're trying to calm someone they don't respect. Everything's fine. Then my nephew, still honest in the way only children are, said, "She's with her dad." That word didn't bounce. It landed. Her dad. The man who vanished years ago. The man my daughter barely remembered. The man who hadn't called, paid, shown up, or asked about her once in more than 3 years. "You gave her to him?" I asked. "We didn't give her," Claire corrected. "We left her with her father." My mother smiled tighter, the corners of her mouth pulling thin. "We all agreed it's better without her. Better without her. Better without my 9-year-old child." For a moment, the sound in the terminal faded. I stared at their faces, searching for panic, for doubt, for someone to realize they had crossed a line that didn't erase itself. They were calm, satisfied. That was when something inside me hardened. "Give me his address," I said. "No," Claire replied immediately. "His phone number." "No. You're not going to rush over there and cause trouble," my father snapped. "What trouble?" I asked, my voice cracking despite my effort to keep it steady. "I want my child. This is done," my mother said. Done. Like custody was a group decision made over brunch. I pulled out my phone. My hands were shaking now, but movement helped. I called his old number. Voicemail. Again and again. I turned away from them because if I kept looking at their faces, I might do something irreversible. I opened my browser and typed his name like he was a missing package. He hadn't existed online when he disappeared. Now he was everywhere. Company pages, professional photos, smiling next to glass buildings and men in suits. He looked like someone who wanted to be seen. I scrolled until my thumb hurt. Then I saw it. A photo posted less than 2 hours earlier. A bright, expensive place. His arm around a small figure in pink. Nora, her hair, her posture, the way she held her shoulders when she was trying not to cry. My stomach dropped like I'd stepped off a curb and the ground wasn't there. "Behind me," Claire said. "Don't be dramatic." I turned slowly. They stood there like they'd done something generous, like they expected gratitude instead of fear. I didn't cry. I looked at them and said very quietly, "You've made a mistake." My mother tilted her head. "You'll see." I nodded once, because I could feel something shifting into place, cold and clear, the feeling right before glass shatters. This wasn't going to be a family argument. This was going to be a rescue. People like to ask me later if I didn't see it coming. They always ask it with that tone people use when they think hindsight is the same thing as wisdom. Like there must have been a flashing sign I ignored. Like the moment my family decided to leave my child behind should have been obvious if I had just been paying closer attention. The truth is, I saw the pattern. I just never imagined the pattern would swallow my daughter. Claire had always been the favorite. That was the family's original religion. It was established early and reinforced often. Growing up, she was praised constantly, without effort, without explanation. If Claire wanted a new outfit for a school event, my parents found a way. If she wanted to quit something, they told her she deserved better anyway. If she succeeded, it was proof she was special. If she failed, it was someone else's fault. I was different. I was independent. That was the word they used. Independent sounded like praise, but it was really a permission slip for neglect. If I needed something, I was capable. If I struggled, I was resilient. If I achieved something, it was expected. They were proud of me in the way people are proud of furniture that doesn't break. As adults, the favoritism didn't disappear. It got organized. It got a budget. My parents treated Claire's household like an ongoing project. They covered bills just until next payday. They paid for activities, sports fees, family weekends, flights, vacations. Real trips, the kind with matching photos and resort bracelets. They traveled with Claire's family. Resorts, beaches, smiling group shots, the kind of memories people print and frame. Nora and I weren't part of those trips. Not in a dramatic, you're not invited way. In a quiet way. The kind of exclusion you're supposed to swallow politely, so you don't make anyone uncomfortable, and I did swallow it. I swallowed it because I wanted my daughter to have grandparents, because I believed some connection was better than none, because there is a special kind of exhaustion that comes from arguing with people who insist you are the problem. Then there was her father. People like simple villains. They like stories where the bad guy is bad from the beginning and stays that way. This wasn't like that. He could be charming. That was his skill. He could walk into a room and make people feel chosen. He did it to my parents. He did it to strangers. He even did it to Nora in short bursts. When she was little, he would scoop her up, make pancakes, take photos, act like father of the year for an hour. Then the hour would end. He would disappear into his phone, emails, calls, work. He wasn't cruel. He was absent in a way that makes you question whether you're asking for too much. We separated when Nora was around 5. That year before the divorce was messy. He was inconsistent, showed up sometimes, vanished sometimes. Just enough to confuse a child. She would ask, "When is Daddy coming?" And I would say, "Soon," not because I believed it, but because I didn't know what else to do with a 5-year-old's hope. The divorce was finalized when she was 6. After that, he vanished completely. No calls, no visits, no support, no birthday cards, nothing. 3 years passed. Nora stopped asking. Not because she stopped feeling it, but because children adapt when adults don't. By 9, her father wasn't a presence. He was a name. Meanwhile, I was working constantly, teaching, long days, long nights, the kind of job where you give everything and still barely make it. Single motherhood is a permanent state of triage. Bills. Groceries. Shoes that always need replacing. The endless math of what can wait until next month. I couldn't afford big trips. I couldn't afford fancy. I couldn't afford a lawyer to chase down a man who didn't want to be found. And then my parents announced the trip. They said it casually. Like they were going to the mall. It stood out immediately because it wasn't their usual. They loved deals, packages. "We found a great price," was their favorite sentence. This trip didn't sound like a great price. It sounded like someone else paid, but I didn't accuse them. Because if you accuse my mother of something, she becomes a wounded saint. Hurt. Offended. Deeply misunderstood. They invited Nora, not me. Just Nora. That was the point. They didn't usually do big things for her. Not the way they did for Claire's kids. So when they said they wanted Nora to come, part of me wanted to believe it meant something. Maybe they were trying. Maybe they had noticed the imbalance and felt guilty. Maybe this was their attempt to be better grandparents, and Nora was excited. She talked about it for weeks. Tall buildings, pools, fancy breakfasts, buffets. I couldn't give her that, so I said yes. I signed the consent letter. 3 days. Specific dates. I packed her suitcase. I wrote her name on everything like it was summer camp. During the trip, I tried to call. Not constantly, just enough to hear her voice. Every time someone answered with an excuse. She's swimming. She's eating. She's tired. She's having fun. Claire sent photos. Nora smiling, holding ice cream, standing in a hotel lobby. Everyone looked cheerful, so I told myself it was fine, because I'm a mother, not a detective. And that's how I ended up in an airport, with daisies and cold coffee, smiling at my family until I realized the only person I cared about wasn't with them. Standing there, listening to my parents talk about opportunities, something clicked. Opportunities. That word again. They said it like it was a gift. Like it erased consent. Like it replaced law. Like it justified theft. Opportunities is a word people use when they want to disguise control as generosity. When they want to sound noble while making a decision that isn't theirs to make. Looking at my family in that terminal, I understood something clearly for the first time. This wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a plan. Dubai hadn't been a vacation. It had been a handoff. And while they were still explaining, still justifying, still telling me to calm down and accept it. I realized something else. I wasn't going to win this by arguing. I wasn't going to win by appealing to their conscience. I was going to win by changing the rules of the room. I took a breath, a slow one, and that was the moment I stopped being polite. I didn't announce what I was about to do. I didn't threaten them. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't make a scene. I did the one thing my family hates more than anything. I brought in witnesses. Airport police wasn't a dramatic choice. It was the only one that made sense. We were still there, still under fluorescent lights, still surrounded by cameras, uniforms, rules, and paper trails. I had my phone. I had the photo of the travel consent letter. I had my custody paperwork saved as PDFs because being a single mother teaches you to keep receipts the way other people keep souvenirs. I walked up to the nearest officer and said, "My child was taken internationally and wasn't returned." That sentence changes the temperature of a room. The officer's face shifted immediately. His posture straightened, his attention locked in. He asked my daughter's name, her age, where she traveled, who traveled with her, and what the agreement was. I didn't give him a story. I gave him facts. She's 9. She traveled with my parents and sister. The consent was for 3 days. She was due back today. She's not here. I handed him my phone. The photo of the signed consent letter, the dates, the return flight, the custody order showing I had sole legal custody. He looked once, then he said, "Stay here." My family watched as he radioed for assistance. 2 more officers approached. Questions started. Voices rose. Claire laughed too loudly, the kind of laugh people use when they think humor will shrink a problem. My mother went straight into wounded grandmother mode. She clutched her purse, spoke softly, explained how she was only trying to help. My father kept repeating, "This is family business." The officers didn't care. They weren't there to negotiate feelings. They were there because a child didn't come home. I sat on a hard plastic chair with my phone in my lap. My knee bounced like it had its own motor. I watched my mother gesture dramatically. I watched Claire point at me like I was the criminal. I watched Jason stay half a step behind her, quiet, letting her absorb the attention. An officer came back to me. "Do you know if they booked a return ticket for your daughter?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "Same flight as them. Same itinerary." He nodded slowly. "They can't provide proof of that." My stomach tightened. "They're also in communication with someone overseas," he continued. "There are messages referencing payment. Payment. That word didn't echo. It didn't ring. It sank. The trip hadn't been a gift. It hadn't been bonding. It hadn't been grandparents spoiling their grandchild. It had been a transaction. I stood up too fast, the room tilting slightly. I steadied myself on the chair and forced my voice to stay even. "Do you have his address?" I asked. He wrote it down. A building name, a district, a phone number. "You're filing a report," I said. "Yes," he replied. "You'll get a case number." I nodded. I didn't wait for them to finish questioning my family. I didn't argue when my mother hissed my name. I didn't respond when Claire told me I was overreacting. I stepped away. I walked toward the airline desk, opened my banking app, and made a decision that made my stomach drop. I bought the fastest flight available. One way, no return date. The kind of ticket you don't buy unless you've already decided there's no going back. My credit card hesitated. I didn't. Debt can be recovered. A lost child can't. As I waited at the gate, my hands shook so badly I had to press my fingertips into my palms to steady them. When the plane lifted off, I stared at the tray table in front of me like it might explain how a child could disappear from your life in 3 days. I tried to sleep. I couldn't. So I researched his company, his posts, his professional photos, his carefully curated life. He posted like someone who wanted to be seen, like someone who believed visibility was protection. I scrolled through comments. Congratulations, praise, admiration, and then I noticed something. One name kept appearing, a name that didn't belong to a friend or a family member, a name that carried weight. I didn't know him personally, but I knew power when I saw it. Influence, reputation. The kind of person who didn't like mess anywhere near his brand. I didn't feel relief. I felt focus. I wasn't going to win this by begging. I wasn't going to win this by yelling. I was going to win it by speaking a language he understood. As the cabin lights dimmed and the plane cut through the dark, I stopped thinking like a desperate mother and started thinking like someone who had nothing left to lose. By the time we landed, I had a plan. Not a perfect one, not a safe one, just the only one that existed. I stepped off the plane with an address written on paper, a case number saved in my phone, and a clarity that felt almost calm. I wasn't asking for my child back anymore. I was coming to take her, and I was done playing by their rules forever. The city hit me like a showroom. Glass towers, bright sun, everything polished to the point where it didn't feel real. Even exhaustion felt expensive here. I stepped out of the airport with an address written on a scrap of paper, and the kind of fatigue that settles into your bones, not your muscles. The address was real. It was also useless. A building is not a child, and I didn't have the luxury of knocking on doors and hoping for the best. I stood on the curb outside the terminal, the heat pressing down on me, and refreshed my phone like it was a heartbeat monitor. That was when I saw it. A new post, minutes old. A glossy photo from a business event. White tablecloths. Soft lighting. Men in suits that cost more than my car. Smiles that had been practiced in mirrors. And there he was, standing in the middle of it, relaxed, confident, like the world was exactly where he expected it to be. And in the corner of the photo, half turned away, was my daughter. She was wearing a dress I recognized, one I had bought for a school ceremony. Her posture was stiff, the way it gets when she's been told to stand still and stop making faces. She looked small in a room built for adults who didn't notice children unless they were useful. The post had a location tag, a venue name. I read it twice. Then I got into a taxi and said it out loud. The driver nodded and pulled into traffic like I had asked for a grocery store instead of the place where my child was being displayed. When we arrived, I understood immediately. I wasn't getting inside. Security stood near the entrance. Guests moved with purpose. There was a guest list energy in the air, the kind that makes exclusion feel polite. I looked down at myself. The same clothes I'd worn on the flight. Nothing fancy. Nothing that said I belonged in a room like this. Security glanced at me once and shook his head. I didn't argue. I didn't beg. Not because I couldn't, but because I knew what would happen if I became a problem. Problems get removed. So I went back to the taxi and sat there, watching the revolving doors spin people in and out of a world I couldn't access. My phone felt heavy in my hand. I opened LinkedIn again, scrolling through his profile like I was studying a map. It wasn't personal. It was a stage. Leadership posts, industry insights, carefully framed photos, smiles that didn't reach his eyes. He was the kind of man who knew which side of his face looked trustworthy. And then I saw it. A name that appeared more than once in the comments. Clean, polished, important. I didn't know who he was. I didn't need to. I just knew my ex cared. And if he cared, it was leverage. I made a decision. I didn't write a rant. I didn't tell my story in paragraphs. I wrote a statement. Short, clean, professional. My name, my daughter's name, her age, my sole legal custody, the 3-day travel consent, the failure to return my child, the active police report. I tagged his company. I tagged the people he was trying to impress. I tagged the man whose name kept appearing. And then I hit publish. For a moment, nothing happened. Then I tried to send private messages. A cheerful notification popped up. You can't message this person because you're not connected. I stared at the screen. Underneath, it was a suggestion. Upgrade to premium. My daughter was inside that building, and LinkedIn wanted my credit card. Fine. I upgraded right there in the taxi, my hands shaking so badly I typed my card number wrong twice. The confirmation popped up. Premium activated. I started sending messages. Not emotional ones, not dramatic ones. Short, polite, terrifying. I am the mother and sole legal custodian of the minor currently present at your event. She was taken under limited consent and not returned. I have documentation and an active police report, and can provide proof immediately. I attached the receipts privately. The custody order, the consent letter, the case number, screenshots referencing payment. I wasn't trying to win an argument. I was trying to poison a deal. When I finished, I put my phone down and stared at the entrance like it might spit my child out if I stared hard enough. Minutes passed, then more. The taxi's air conditioner hummed. My foot tapped against the floor. Then movement. A group of men came out together, polished, expensive, controlled. One of them matched the photos perfectly, the man whose name I had tagged. They didn't stop to talk. They didn't linger. They got into their cars and left quickly, like people who didn't want to be associated with a mess. I stayed. My daughter hadn't come out yet. The doors opened and closed. Guests filtered out. The night stretched on. My chest felt tight enough to crack. Then he came out. Alone, phone in hand, head down, jaw locked. He paced once, twice, typed something furiously, then turned back toward the entrance. And then the doors opened again. The doors opened again. This time, it was her, my daughter. For a split second, she stood still, like her body didn't trust what her eyes were seeing. Her gaze moved across the space, scanning, searching, cautious in the way children get when the world has taught them that nothing is guaranteed. Then she saw me. She froze. And then she ran. I was already out of the taxi before my mind caught up with my body. I didn't think. I didn't hesitate. I didn't check for permission. I crossed the space between us like it didn't exist. Mom. Her voice cracked halfway through the word. I caught her mid-stride, wrapped my arms around her, felt her shaking against me, small and solid and real. She smelled like unfamiliar soap and something sharp, hotel air maybe, or fear. I pressed my face into her hair and breathed her in like oxygen. I'm here, I whispered. I've got you. She clung to me like she was afraid gravity might stop working if she let go. I felt her heartbeat against my chest, fast and uneven. I didn't tell her it was okay. I didn't tell her everything would be fine. I just stayed. A woman I didn't recognize stood a few steps behind her, uncertain, one hand hovering in the air like she wasn't sure whether to intervene or disappear. I didn't look at her. I didn't need to. Then he appeared, too close, too fast. What are you doing here? He hissed, his voice low and sharp, like he was trying to contain a mess instead of fix it. I didn't answer. My daughter tightened her grip on my shirt. That was enough. I turned, keeping her pressed against me, and walked back toward the taxi. His voice followed us, words tumbling out in anger and disbelief, but they blurred together into noise. We got into the car, the doors locked. The city began to move again. My daughter didn't let go of my hand. We're going to the embassy, I said quietly. She nodded, fast, like she was afraid if she hesitated, something might change. Okay, she whispered. That was it. No speeches. No confrontation. No dramatic victory moment. Just forward motion. The embassy process wasn't cinematic. It was fluorescent lights and paperwork and waiting rooms that smelled like coffee and stress. Emergency documents. Serious faces. Questions asked gently but precisely. I answered everything. She sat close enough that our knees touched, her hand always finding mine again if it slipped away. We were on a plane home faster than I expected. On the flight, she slept curled against me like she used to when she was smaller. I stayed awake the entire time, one hand resting on her back, feeling her breathe, counting the rise and fall like a promise. The weeks after we got home were quiet in a way that felt dangerous, not peaceful, cautious. She followed me from room to room. If I went to the bathroom and closed the door, she stood outside it. If I took the trash out, she watched from the window. At night, She woke up whispering, "You're still here, right?" And every time, I put my hand on her back and said, "I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." She didn't tell me everything at once. She told me in fragments. About being coached. About practicing smiles. About being told what to say if anyone asked questions. About being instructed to call him amazing and say she was so happy. She cried quietly there, she told me. The kind of crying you do when you're trying not to get in trouble for being upset. It took time. Healing always does. She laughs again now. Real laughs. The kind that catch you off guard. She still checks sometimes. Still needs reassurance. Still wants to know where I am before she settles. And that's okay. As for everyone else, there were consequences. Legal ones. Paperwork. Court dates. Numbers that look clean on paper but don't feel clean when you live inside them. Restrictions. Probation. Fines. No contact orders. No more pretending this was a misunderstanding. No more hiding behind family. Her father saw the evidence and chose not to fight it. Deals were made. Boundaries set. Distance enforced. Control removed. My money panic eased. Not because I got lucky, but because I stopped being polite about people who hurt us. The real change, though, wasn't legal. It was internal. I stopped being afraid of being called too much. I stopped shrinking myself to keep other people comfortable. I stopped believing that calm meant kind, or that family meant safe. And now I want to ask you something. If this were you, would you have gone too far? Or not far enough? Comment 1 if you believe I did exactly what a mother should do. Comment 0 if you think I crossed a line. And if you want more stories like this, stories about quiet strength, about women who stop being polite, about the moment someone becomes dangerous in the right way, follow this channel. Because some stories aren't about revenge. They're about rescue.